Okay. So we will go to the description of the course. Okay. Okay. As you can see in the description of the course, there are two important uh, terms that you find here, methodologically and thematically. Okay. Uh, we deal with moral, with principles, with basic concepts, okay, uh, in relation uh, to the way we think about what is good and what is right on the basis of our Christian tradition, okay. But this has to be done in a methodological way, which means it's following a particular system of thought, okay, or schools of thought, okay, in trying to expound, investigate on some of these basic principles that we need to appreciate. Okay, and we do that also in a thematic way. Okay, and here we see we will be able to appreciate uh, this whole understanding against the background of different moral visions. Actually, the very first lesson that we will talk about will be the end, uh, according to Stephen Covey, for example, in his uh, the 8 habits of successful people or leaders, is you always have to start with the end. Why are we doing all of that? Because it is basically going to orient us toward a particular end, and therefore, just like in the way we approach things and reality, the way we live our lives will have to be based heavily on how we appreciate our end. Okay, so that's the first, and then we will also understand that in our appreciation of the end, there will be always ways by which we're able to justify, okay, certain ways of thinking, of living, and of valuing, okay, and whether or not they actually lead us to that end, okay, and we are able to do that specifically, trying to appreciate that the vision, the perspective, and the approaches that we use somehow is drawn from our Christian tradition. Is there anything very specific about our Christian tradition uh, that, in a way, differs that from other traditions of ethical rationality? Okay, so that will have to be expounded there. And the very purpose for that is uh, that it would lead us, on the one hand, to shape moral characters, because that is the purpose of moral theology, okay, to build our moral characters as human persons, according to the vision and according to the perspective, etc., that we would be able to adopt, and not only in a personal level, but also in a structural level, because moral theology is not meant not to be dealt with only in the personal level, but also in a societal level. And the vision is transformation of the social order. Okay? So it will be interdisciplinary in approach, and it gives importance, therefore, to other uh, human and social sciences. Okay, so that we may be able to appreciate the development of moral consciousness of people. Okay, so very important is that in our world today, we just don't start with absolute, eternal ideas out there, but we need to be able to appreciate that moral visions, moral perspectives, moral ways of thinking, believing, valuing, and practicing is always grounded in the reality of our human experiences and the evolution of our historical consciousness. Okay? Now, uh, we cannot do away with history. We cannot do away with trying to understand that everything that changes in the mind somehow is very profoundly affected by the evolution of rationality within the context of our history. Okay, we will expound that later on, but at the moment, I hope you are with me. And we will see that that is fully demonstrated, especially within the church, the evolution of our own moral perspectives and moral consciousness specifically happened during the Second Vatican Council, which we could consider as the watershed, okay, for the many shifts, transformations in the way we think about the good and respond to that as Christians, as human persons. Okay, so we will see. We will have one session on the shifts that happened in the Second Vatican Council, and also appreciate the consequences of certain shifts in terms of methodology that happened in Vatican Council. And therefore, we would see that the way we approach uh, issues and realities, and when the way we actually do moral discernment is quite different from the way we did it before Vatican II. Okay, are you with me? So we will see that, uh, especially in terms of effects, both in the church and in society. Okay, uh, are you with me? Can you get that?
Yes,
I think
Father.
Yes,
I
Father.
think
Yes,
I
Father.
think we will still have
Yes.
to decode many of these concepts. Okay, so to be able to expound on that, I would like to propose syllabus topics that we could actually, um, in a way, uh, talk about every session. By the way, we have two sessions every meeting, you know, supposedly, because we have 3 hours. The first 1.5 hours, or a little less than that. Hopefully, we'll be covering one aspect, and another aspect will be on the other topic. So we start with today. We're trying to understand moral theology vis-a-vis the contemporary moral landscape. What are the challenges that we face today? I'm sure you yourselves are confronted with these particular issues. And in fact, one of the questions uh, has pointed out to that. After dealing with understanding moral theology within the social moral landscape, we will move into understanding uh, the search of a good life and the moral visions, particularly trying to understand this within our Christian tradition. And here, the most important concept, which is the center in our Christian tradition, is actually the whole concept about the reign of God. And then we will see that in the world we live, the way we are able to come up with moral justification, moral reasoning in a very pluralistic and postmodern world would give way to many diverse moral perspectives. Very different. Okay, even among us within the Catholic tradition, you would see already a lot of differences, sometimes conflicting even. Okay, and then after going into that, okay, trying to understand the different moral perspectives, philosophically and also later on theologically, we will move into appreciating moral development. And two aspects would be the foci of this discussion. One is anthropological, and the other one is psychological, okay, development, which means that whenever we talk about thinking about the good or doing moral reasoning, you can speak of certain developments anthropologically. The way our forebears thought about the good was very different from the way we think about and discern what is good today. Do you understand? Okay, we will see that there has been certain development because of the evolution of historical consciousness. Because our own way of moral reasoning is never somehow um, uh, shielded from such global developments in the world we live. So that's anthropologically. How do cultures, in a way, start thinking about what is good? What made them, for example, uh, decide what that a particular practice is good and a particular behavior is bad. Okay, we will try to understand that how particular cultures develop, uh, and just you could see certain patterns in such types of development. And then also psychologically, uh, does a person, for example, uh, of a mature age think morally in the same way that the child, for example, or a teen would think about the good or the bad? What are the factors that influence, etc.? Or are there certain patterns that you discover according to age groups, for example, that make you see how particular individuals come up with their own moral reasoning? And we will investigate that. There has been uh, an appreciation of that in moral psychology. Okay, and then we move on to the Bible and its role in ethical discourse. We will try to investigate: is there really a role uh, that the Bible has, especially in determining what should be normative in our context today? The question is, some people are saying, oh, the Bible was written 2 millennia ago, okay? More than 2 millennia ago, okay? Or and can you speak of that is still valid when particular ethical expressions and normativities within those particular culture actually were born out of their own particular tradition? And would that would those uh, norms be applicable? Would they be applicable to us in our postmodern context? So we will try to investigate that, and we will see that there are varying opinions among theologians, okay, regarding this issue. And then here we will talk about moral theology in particular and how it evolved, okay, in history, okay, from the time of Christ up to our present time. And such development will pay special attention not only to the content per se, but more so to the methodology that has been employed, okay, among the church fathers. And later on, it shifted to another type of methodology that you can speak of different uh, ways how people thought about what is good, precisely depending on the framework and the methodology that they employ. Are you with me? Are
Yes,
you still
Father.
with me? Okay.
Yes,
Father.
Father.
We're just giving a panoramic view of what you can expect from the course. And then we will see that in this historical development, there will be a special attention that we will give to the Second Vatican Council. And we will try to appreciate the paradigm shifts, okay, that happened in moral theology as a result of the new thinking in moral theology. Okay. And then after moving into moral theology, that's when we begin to become more thematic. Okay. They will see that the changes that were brought about in the Second Vatican Council actually made an effect in the way we do moral theology, in the way we think about what is good from the perspective of how we appreciate tradition to impact in our lives today. So we will see that there will be different moral methodologies as a result of Vatican II. And apply that specifically first on the theme human person. How do we appreciate the human person? How central is the human person in this? And then after that, we will see what would be the role of laws, moral laws, in relation to human freedom and to the exercise of conscience, etc. So here we will try to see another very important theme. Okay, how do you, in a way, speak about the creative tension between moral laws and freedom, and how somehow it could be balanced in the appreciation of Christian conscience. Okay, so that's another very fundamental theme that one needs to ask. And then after that, we will see, are we really free? Are we not bound by our own sinfulness? There are certain things that we want to do, and yet we cannot do. But there are certain things that we don't want to do, yet we do it, etc. How free are we as human persons in that sense? Okay, and therefore we would see that in most cases, sometimes we do not, we are not able to exercise fully our freedom because of our own sinfulness. That our human nature has been marked, okay, by sin. But of course, we have to balance that with the appreciation of the operation of God's grace in our lives. So it's the tension. If there is a tension between appreciation of moral law, freedom, and conscience, in the next theme, we will appreciate the tension or the relationship between human sinfulness and God's graciousness. And then we move on. After that, we will try to appreciate uh, what is at the very heart of moral theology is actually the whole question about Christian discipleship, which is about following Jesus. And following Jesus lead us to developing a moral character of virtuous living. Okay? And see, we will see that how we can appreciate that. And then if we are called to live a virtuous life, it basically is all about developing our moral character and identity. And here we would like to zero in into the development of our identity, Christian identity as stewards, as servant leader, as missionary, as a result of our own following of Jesus. As basically uh, being disciples of Jesus, we become stewards of the bountiful graces of God. We become leaders, but servant leaders, and we are actually called to proclaim, okay, the truths that we discover uh, in our society. Okay, do you have any questions? I don't want to be speaking all the time. You will be falling asleep. Okay,
And
okay.
so far.
And so far, Father.
Can you follow? So this will be the program for the whole semester. Do you appreciate that, or would you like to have something else that you expect that do not appear in the list of topics that you want be tackled? Any? Actually, it's also possible that when we talk about Christian conscience, normally in some cases there is a tension between the magisterium and conscience. Okay, but maybe we could touch that when we talk about the laws, because you can refer to the moral laws, especially as embodied in the tradition within the church. When the church says this is the law, can you always follow that all the time? How about if your conscience somehow tells you to do otherwise? How do you deal with that? These are very important questions that we may have to deal with. Okay. So any other topic that would interest you, but you do not see in the lists. Wala na. Please engage. I really like students engaging and even demolishing sometimes my position, so that gives me the opportunity to be able to precisely deepen our discussions. Okay, but of course these are just panoramic view of what you could expect from the course, unless you have something else that would interest you but does not appear here in the list of topics that you expect. Meron ba? Wala na. Maybe in the course of our of the whole semester, maybe you could actually bring up certain issues that we may have to uh, tackle also. Okay? If there are no more questions related to that, we move on. Okay. I hope it doesn't get stuck up. That's always the problem here. Yeah. Course requirements. Okay.